that there will one day, if you can develop a technology, and we most certainly will be able to, if you look at where we are right now in 2025 and you scale forward 50, 60 years, there will be one day a virtual simulation of this reality that's indistinguishable from reality. So how would we know if we're in it? This is the big question, right? But also, isn't it possible that it has to be invented one day, but hasn't yet?
It's also possible, but then we find ourselves in this very unique moment where it's not invented yet, but we're about to invent all this technology. It is a possibility, absolutely,
Right.
but just statistically, I think it's much less. And I'm trying to bring up this thought experiment with creating this moment on purpose in the future to pre-commitments.
Mm-hmm.
Half the people think it's the dumbest argument in the world. Half of them go, it's brilliant. Obviously, we are in one. So I'll let you decide.
Yeah. I feel like if virtual reality does exist, there has to be a moment where it doesn't exist and then it's invented. Why wouldn't we assume that we're in that moment, especially if we look at the scaling forward of technology from MS-DOS to, user interfaces of like Apple, and then what we're at now with quantum computing and these sort of discussions? Isn't it more obvious that we can trace back the beginning of these things, and we can see that we're in the process of this, that we're not in a simulation. We're in the process of eventually creating one.
So you zoomed out 30 years.
Yes.
Zoom out 15 billion years. You have a multiverse where this process took place billions of times. You are simulation within simulation, many levels over. And to you, even if this was a simulation of those 30 years, it would look exactly like that. You would see where it started. It wouldn't be magically showing up out of nowhere.
Right. So if you're playing the game, in the game you have Newton and Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, and
well, at least you have memories of those things, even if you started with preloaded memory state.
Right. You have Stalin. You have all these problematic human beings and all the different reasons why we've had to do certain things and initiate world conflicts. Then you've had the contrarians that talk and say, actually, that's not what happened. This is what really happened. And it makes it even more confusing and myopic. And then you get to the point where two people, allegedly, like you and I, are sitting across from each other on a table made out of wood, but maybe not really.
It would feel like wood to you either way.
Is it possible that that's just the nature of the universe itself?
There are some arguments about kind of self-sustaining simulations where no one's running them externally, just the nature, but I honestly don't fully comprehend how that would happen.
Yeah, the holographic universe and the concepts of human consciousness has to interact with something for it to exist in the first place.
That's one. Also, if you have infinite universe, then everything possible happens anyway, but it's boring. I don't like this argument.
Why don't you like that's boring? Why
everything happens. There is I give you a book which has every conceivable sentence in it, and would you read it? It's a lot of garbage you have to go through to find anything interesting.
Well, is it just that we're so limited cognitively? Because we do have a history, at least in this simulation, we do have a history of, there was a gentleman that, see if you could find this, they traced this guy, they found 9,000-year-old DNA, and they traced this 9,000-year-old DNA to a guy that's living right now. I believe it's in England.
Mm-hmm. I remember reading that.
Yeah, which is really fascinating. So 9,000 years ago, his ancestor lived, and so we have this limitation of our genetics. 9,000 years ago, wherever this guy lived, it's probably a hunter and gatherer, probably very limited language, very limited skills in terms of making shelter, and who knows if even he knew how to make fire. And then here, 9,000 DNA just turned human history on its head. Is this it? I don't think so.
It was interesting that he ended up living right next to the guy from 9th. He never moved. His family just stayed there for 9,000 years. That's awesome.
it's traced back to one individual man. I actually posted it on my Instagram story, Jamie. I'll find it here because it's oh, here it is. 9,000-year-old skeleton in Somerset. This is it. So it's can you send an Instagram story? Not sure if you can.
It's still on there. I'll check it real quick. Sorry.
Why don't I find it on there? I don't know. Okay. Either way, point being, maybe it's just that we're so limited because we do have this, at least again in this simulation, we're so limited in our ability to even form concepts because we have these primitive brains that are the architecture of the human brain itself is just not capable of interfacing with the true nature of reality. So we give this primitive creature this sort of basic understanding, these blueprints of how the world really works, but it's really just a facsimile. And it's not it's not capable of understanding like when we look at like quantum reality, when we look at just the basics of quantum mechanics and subatomic particles. Like it seems like magic, right? Things in superposition, they're both moving and not moving in the same time. They're quantumly attached. Like what? You know, we have photons that are quantumly entangled. Like this doesn't even make sense to us, right? So is it that the universe itself is so complex, the reality of it, and that we're given this sort of, you know, we're giving like an Atari framework to this monkey. That's the gentleman right there.
This is an old story.
Oh, is it really?
It's from 97.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it kind of makes sense as a simulation theory because all those special effects you talk about, so speed of light is just the speed at which your computer updates. Entanglement makes perfect sense if all of it goes through your processor, not directly from pixel to pixel. And rendering, there are quantum physics experiments which, if you observe things, they render different. It's what we do in computer graphics.
Right.
So we see a lot of that. You brought up limitations of us as humans. We have terrible memory. I can remember 7 units of information maybe. We're kind of slow. So we call it artificial stupidity. We try to figure out those limits and program them into AI to see if it makes them safer. It also makes sense as an experiment to see if we as general intelligences can be better controlled with those limitations built in.
That's interesting. So like some of the things that we have, like Dunbar's number and these the inability to keep more than a certain number of people in your mind.
Absolutely. More generally, like, why can't you remember anything from prior generations? Why can't you just pass that memory? Kids are born speaking language. That would be such an advantage.
Right.
And we have instincts which are built that way. So we know evolution found a way to put it in, and it's computationally tractable. So there is no reason not to have that.